All right, welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation. As you know, we talk about some pretty crazy things here when it comes to the fast casual restaurant business. My name is Paul Barron. I'm your host today. And, you know, the idea of fast casual, of really kind of the breakout brands, has been something that we've been tracking for, gosh, almost 2 decades now. We've looked at, I mean, we literally kind of identified and helped kind of understand where some of the best brands in the business are going today. I remember when we interviewed Sweet Green when they had 3 locations. So those are kind of the things that we like to bring in on the show today. And today's concept is a little different, and it's one that I think you're going to like. It's a company called Sweet Paris Crêperie, and I'm going to get that right. But with me today, I've got the co-founder, Allison Chavez. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be in the company of all the companies you've spoken with. So thank you for having us.
Allison, so you and your husband founded Sweet Paris. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what drove you into it. What was the kind of the draw of, I mean, this isn't a typical fast casual concept. You're quite a bit different.
It's not typical fast casual, and we are not typical restaurateurs. This really began with a craving for crepes, and then shortly thereafter, a harebrained idea. My husband and I both met in undergrad at Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, and we're both studying finance, real estate, entrepreneurship. And we were young professionals in Houston in our mid-20s, and I was doing real estate finance. He's in resort hospitality, and truly had a craving for crepes one evening, and we went out in Houston to see what it had to offer. He had spent some time studying abroad in Paris, some summers during college studying French, but truly believed he was spending more time at the crepe cart on the corner than actually in class. And when we saw what there was to offer in Houston, he said, I think we could do better. And, I'm the more conservative, data-driven finance person. He, the true entrepreneur. And I said, you know what, let's get a crepe maker. And we went to Williams-Sonoma, bought a crepe machine, started spinning crepes in our apartment kitchen. And as he was, the stack of failed crepes was growing, I was crunching some numbers of, food cost. And this is how it began. And it took us about a year to find the right space, develop the concept, set the menu, all while we, kept our day jobs and opened our first location in May of 2012.
Okay, so that's a great story because, that is truly kind of starting from nothing. And the fact that you guys didn't have any restaurant experience, that's even more impressive. Even though today I feel like we're seeing more and more operators that are coming from a lot of other, disciplines, finance, banking, research, technology. A lot is now playing into, especially the fast casual space. Logistics management, all those kind of things, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so Crepes is, as I said, is quite a bit different.
Right.
When you thought about developing a menu, because that's kind of your first trek into building a restaurant brand, you've got to get that menu right. How did you guys approach that? Because obviously building a menu around crepes as the center stage you have to be pretty creative. Did you get any culinary help with that, or was it kind of all on your own?
We absolutely did. We see the crepe as kind of the vehicle for many international flavors. But perfecting the crepe recipe is absolutely the most important base. And so we have the fortunate ability through my husband's work in development to access French trained chefs and to work in a commercial kitchen in Mexico where he spends most of his professional life, churning out different crepe recipes and combinations of fillings. I mean, to the point where I think there were over 70 that we had tasted. And once, you know, some Fruit Loops were getting into the crepes, we said, you know what, we should stop here. We need to start cutting down. And it went from there. But truly, you know, tasting each and every option until we got to a menu we felt really about, with a breakfast selection, savory and sweet options. And I think sometimes our name that we, you know, chose for Sweet Paris Crêperie can mislead people into thinking that, what we serve or a crepe is just a sweet treat, but truly it can be a full meal, and we advertise it
Right.
as such.
Yeah. I've had in visiting France and some of the restaurants that really kind of go overboard with crepes. I found that the savory ones are actually the ones that kind of surprise you and really kind of leave you very satiated in sense of, wow, this was a completely different experience than what I thought it would be when I, ordered that menu item. So I've seen that. It's very cool to see a brand here in the U.S. kind of go in that direction. Okay, so building that in Houston, there had to be a little bit of education, I'm assuming. Not that Houstons aren't, cosmopolitan, but, they're Texans.
Yeah.
I'm a Texan.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not something I would normally, go out and say, hey, let's go get a crepe for lunch. How did you
I
guys go about to kind of grow the market?
Well, at Sweet Paris, we certainly make Texas-sized crepes, so it's not going to necessarily be the very thinly filled crepes you might find in Paris. But we want to make sure our Texans leave happy and satisfied. But truly, this idea was all coming about at the same time as other niche food concepts were really taking off: cupcakes, frozen yogurt.
Right.
And so it was a time that felt like we could educate the consumer. We were really lucky with our first location. This landlord in Rice Village, which is a old retail, shopping, dining, well-known center in Houston, took a chance on a couple of 26-year-olds who did not have prior restaurant experience. But we were near a college campus. We were near lots of families. And, I think that first location really knocked it out of the park as well in terms of vigor and, getting our first fans through the door.
I like it. Okay, so how many units are you guys at now today?
Right. Today we have 10 units in Texas and 1 licensed in Mexico. Of those 10, 4 are corporate owned and 6 franchised.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Was franchising on your plan when you started? Was it something you kind of developed into? Kind of talk me through how
Sure.
you decided to go franchise.
Sure. It's definitely something we developed into. After we opened our first store, you can imagine, it takes some time to build the operations and really, recognize that this is a concept that can be replicated, throughout Texas and beyond. And that at that moment, we decided one of us needs to focus on Sweet Paris full time. And so that's when I stepped in, the more conservative one, waited till it was going well. And we opened our second location. And after we felt like the second location was a real home run, we started exploring this idea of franchising. And, at first we didn't even want to use the word. We felt franchising came along with battles about brand control and maybe possibly the brand. And really, once we went through the process of organizing ourselves and, basically data dumping all of our know-how into, several manuals that can be passed along to someone to open a beautiful Sweet Paris, we realized, we actually can have a great brand. And we refer to our franchisees as strategic partners because we really do see them that way. And so far it has been a wonderful relationship. And, we started by franchising to kind of suburb locations in Houston because we felt like, we were an arm's length away and
Right.
could assist in that way. And now, we're setting our sights beyond that. So I think we feel good about where we are. But certainly there's that moment where, we look at each other and, we have to either do this or not. And we really felt like Sweet Paris deserved to be in many markets. And since Yvonne and I decided from the would not take on debt or investors, we were going to reinvest 100% of our earnings from Sweet Paris into its own growth, that this would be the best way to expand Sweet Paris, alongside opening some flagship corporate stores.
Well, I think it's a good starting strategy because we've seen a lot of brands that have kind of gone into the franchising model and they, stick a unit, 10 states away. Very difficult to kind of help that operator. And also, not that there is brand control, but obviously you have to secure a certain amount of brand control because you are preserving, kind of what you've built. So I like the fact that you guys kind of stayed close at home to get your feet wet in that. So that was a good strategy. I want to talk a little bit about how you're marketing. So, during kind of what we've gone through here over the past year and a half, a lot of restaurants have really kind of started to shift their approach to marketing from a digital standpoint. What are some of the strategies that you guys are doing right now to kind of get your brand out there?
Honestly, social media, digital marketing strategy has been part of our strategy from day one. We had kind of the benefit that things like Instagram were really taking off when
Right.
we opened our first store. And the concept of, someone sharing a picture of their food to their friends was, unheard of a few years before that. And our own, customers were becoming our greatest marketing assets. And
Yeah.
truly, 2 weeks before we opened our first sweet pair, still considering serving the crepes in, to-go cones as they would in, the streets of Paris. And we realized, wait a minute, Houstonians, they'll drive half of a block to go, to the grocery store. People are going to want to sit down and enjoy their meal. And that's what we want them to do. So we decided to plate the crepes beautifully. That decision was probably one of the most pivotal ones we've made from the get-go, because it was something beautiful that our customers wanted to photograph. Beyond
Yeah.
that,
I like.
it translated to the design as well. Having a beautiful space with, beautiful light fixtures and plastered walls, and, paneled walls. All of that was really important from the beginning. And so when we saw that success with that organic digital marketing, we really just, went full force in that direction. So I think we saved ourselves a lot of time and money, kind of starting with that from the get-go. And by the time we opened our second store 2 years later, it really just took, one Facebook, Instagram post, and we had a line out the door.
Wow.
And, Facebook, Instagram have, they've become more savvy since then, in terms of the amount of, dollar spend translating into views and traction. But,
Yeah.
we feel like we've, grown in that way. And Yvonne and I are millennials, I think just kind of barely, but we are millennials. And so I think we've understood from a consumer perspective, what our customers are looking for as well in that way. So I think digital marketing is where we've started and where we continue to be.
Yeah.
In terms of food influencers, I think, when we first opened, Yelp was still the place where we had a couple events with Yelp leaders, and and now really, I mean, it's gone beyond that. There's a lot of Houston food influencers that came to us organically, and we're just so grateful for their sharing with us. But that is the future, I think, and that's where we are.
It's a good point that you make, because micro-influencers, we've talked to many brands who have kind of gone in this direction with micro-influencers, and it's really started to help. A lot of them were kind of behind, I guess, behind the strategy, because they were kind of mini brands. If they're a little bit larger, we're actually going to influencers that are typically have agents and, the whole process that you've got to go through to get them to do something to kind of help support your business. But I've talked to several CEOs who kind of went that direction first, and they said, yeah, it works. But once that we went into the micro influencers by market, the difference was amazing. Because they were really drilling down into the local community. So I think what you're hitting on there in Houston is right on track with what we're hearing from a lot of other operators. When you look at that, do you guys feel like it's going to be micro-influencers that would stay in the food track itself, or do you think you could expand into other things, maybe like, say, fashion, or maybe even some of these niche verticals that have, kind of a certain amount of following within a certain community? Do you think you could expand from that?
Absolutely. I think, we've really appealed to a family market as well from the get-go. And so, for lack of a better word, mommy bloggers,
Yeah,
those
mom
types of
bloggers. Yep.
influencers and lifestyle influencers, that is our, target market. So moms that want to bring kids. I mean, I myself have a 5, 3, and 1-year-old. So I've made sure that our banquettes are fork proof. Every surface can be wound from Nutella splatters. So, we've catered to that market as well. And I think those types of lifestyle mommy blogger influencers are absolutely, I mean, I would consider them part of our core as well already.
Yeah, you just hit on something that I can appreciate. I have two kids under 5, and I have found more and more restaurants that don't necessarily think through the kid scenario.
Right.
And to find restaurants that are actually addressing children, even though it's a little tougher today because a lot of families aren't bringing kids out as much. But when we get back into that, I think that's a huge differentiator in restaurants that are really kind of killing it. Being able to bring and draw in those families when you have those kind of amenities that are very, kid friendly, so to speak, without it just being, hey, I've got a kid menu, and we serve certain things and going in that direction.
Oh yeah, it's part of our process. I mean, we open kitchen from day one, so having that visual entertainment for the customers as they're waiting in line or going to find a seat, they can watch the crepes being made. And we also made the choice of having the food brought to the table once it is ordered, which, obviously there are different options for service, but recognizing that a parent children having to go up and get the food, I mean, that's another level of chaos. So, which, that appeals broadly to our older customers as well. But, those points of service and kind of visual distractions to make the whole experience, the ambiance appealing to all of those groups has been important.
Last couple of questions here. You mentioned your service model, which is more of a premium one. When you look at fast casual, we've seen, all the way from a Chipotle, which is a line queue, to Panera, which is a pickup service model. Do you think fast casual, because this is something that a lot of operators are trying to figure out now, there's a lot of opportunity with pulling market share from casual dining. Casual dining, of course, has servers. Do you feel like fast casual may have to amp up their service model level to be able to start to draw that market share in the future?
I do think it's important. I mean, clearly in this times we're in, the ability to, be a takeout model as well is very helpful. But I think when people are coming back into the restaurants, as they are in Texas, we're very fortunate for that. They want that fine casual experience, as we call it, and they're looking for this. But in order to keep our price point where it is, I mean, we have to, have a blended model in that way. But I think being able to have the full dining experience without it taking an hour and a half, 2 hours is kind of where people want to be. So I do think so. I mean, I look at an experience at more of a cafeteria style fast casual versus a Sweet Paris experience completely differently. It truly can be a date, a bridal shower, something special. And, our menu items are mostly $10 and under. So, you don't have to make but you do get that finer experience. And so that's something that I think, for brands that have the ability to do that, I think is a great thing, because when people get back out there, they're going to see their dining experiences as special. And I think that sales have returned to pre-pandemic levels by October, and that was at a lower occupancy. And I think, the only explanation I have for that is that people are choosing very few times to experience dining out, and we have patios, but choosing special experiences. So I think that is what has helped us recover and will boost us into the future for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right on the experiential side of it, because we are going to see fewer instances and occasions. So brands that have kind of differentiated are definitely going to have the edge. Allison, if you had one thing as an operator, a founder, the owner of Sweet Paris, if you have one thing that you were saying, hey, on my target board for this year, I want to make sure we're doing this. It could be technology, it could be something in service, something in menu development. What is it that is really special for you guys in 2021 to be watching out for?
I think for us, really, expansion is our number one goal. We've opened 3 franchises during the pandemic in March, in August, and in November. And I think that speaks to, their confidence in our brand in these difficult times. But I think getting the message to these new markets, expanding Sweet Paris while really taking care of our customers here is our main goal. Because truly, if the pandemic taught us nothing else, it was that, never take someone walking through your door for granted.
Yeah.
And so making sure we maintain that experience for our customers is key. And taking care of our staff. I mean, our team members showed up for us the moment that we needed them again. And so I think, expansion, but also taking care of our home base is our goal this year. So
very cool.
We look forward
Allison
to greater times in 21.
Yeah, that's for sure. I definitely agree with you. Allison Chavez, founder of Sweet Paris out of Houston, Texas, in our Restaurant Breakout Brands series. So thanks for stopping in. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so you guys are listening in maybe over on the podcast version of Fast Casual Nation on iTunes or Spotify or maybe even on Amazon Music. Make sure and drop us a rating. That's how we kind of get your feedback. Let us know what you like and maybe don't like about the show, because we want to try to improve that for you all the time. If you have an idea for someone that should be here, or maybe you have a restaurant breakout brand in your own community that you think, hey, this is a leader or someone that should be on Fast Casual Nation, just shoot us an email to producer@foodabletv.com. You can always hit me up on Twitter @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on Fast Casual Nation.